Understanding hindsight bias also helps us understand several other phenomena in judgment and decision making. The first is called reverse hindsight bias. Now, in most situations, learning an outcome makes that outcome seem more predictable, but researchers such as Ofer and Mazursky have found that this is not always the case. Under some circumstances, particularly when outcomes are extremely surprising, people can show the opposite pattern. Rather than saying, I knew it all along, they conclude, there's no way anyone could have seen that coming. In other words, hindsight can sometimes make an outcome seem less predictable rather than more predictable. This finding reminds us that hindsight judgments depend not only on outcome knowledge, but also on how successfully people can make sense of that outcome. A second related phenomena is sometimes known as the curse of knowledge. Once we know something, it becomes difficult to imagine not knowing it. As a result, we often overestimate what other people know or should know. Some researchers have argued that hindsight bias and the curse of knowledge are closely related because both require us to reason about a state of the world that no longer exists. In hindsight tasks, we try to imagine what it was like before an outcome was known. In curse of knowledge tasks, we try to remember what it's like for someone who lacks information that we currently possess. In both cases, our current knowledge interferes with our ability to adopt another perspective. A third and particularly important phenomena is outcome bias. Outcome bias occurs when we evaluate the quality of a judgment or decision primarily by how things turned out. One of the classic demonstrations comes from research by Jonathan Berry and John Hershey. In their study, participants read about a physician deciding whether to perform a coronary bypass operation. All the participants received exactly the same information about the physician's decision-making process. The only thing that was different was the outcome. Some participants learned that the patient recovered, whereas other participants learned that the patient died. Despite evaluating exactly the same decision, participants judged the physician's decision more favorably when the outcome was positive. The quality of the outcome changed their evaluation of the quality of the decision. This is a powerful reminder that good decisions can produce bad outcomes, and sometimes bad decisions can produce good outcomes. When we evaluate decisions solely in hindsight, we risk rewarding luck and punishing sound judgment. So what can we do about hindsight bias? Research suggests several strategies. One of the most effective is to deliberately consider alternative outcomes. Instead of asking why the observed outcome occurred, we can ask what other outcomes were possible. How might events have unfolded differently? Thinking seriously about alternative possibilities helps restore some of the uncertainty that existed before the outcome was known. Another useful strategy is to create records of predictions and decisions before outcomes occur. In science, we're increasingly encouraged to pre-register our hypotheses. Investors could keep trading journals. Organizations conduct postmortems and document the decision-making processes. Written records provide evidence that memory cannot easily revise later. And finally, when evaluating our own judgments or the judgments of others, it's often helpful to ask a simple question. Given what was known at the time, was this a reasonable judgment or decision? That question won't eliminate hindsight bias completely, but it reminds us of something that hindsight bias encourages us to forget. The future once contained many possibilities. The ending that now seems obvious was once only one of several plausible outcomes. And if we want to learn from the past, rather than simply rewrite it, we must try to remember what the world looked like before we knew how the story ended.